All right, everybody. So I'm thrilled to have Larry, the DUI guy, with me. Hey, what's up?
Not much, just chilling in this crib over here in Los Angeles, California.
Have you ever been on my show before, or have I always been on yours? I'm thinking this might be the first time that you've actually been on my channel, now that I think
I,
about it.
I think
So,
so.
so everybody, this is the DUI guy. You probably, most of you, if not all, are familiar with him. And what is so awesome about him agreeing to come on my channel right now is that he is actually at the Danny Masterson trial. It has just wrapped up. And so basically, Larry, like I have no fucking idea about really any of this. So I'm not expecting you to catch us up on everything, but can you just kind of give me your view of like where you're at right now and where things are at?
Sure, yeah. So the first time I really like fully checked in on with this trial was last week because I had a jury trial of my own that was supposed to go on Thursday last week. And I found out Wednesday that it's not going to go. So I'm like, all right, my next jury trial is scheduled not until December 2nd. Is there anything fun, interesting, exciting that I can maybe, go and do for the YouTube channel, for my fans and all that? And of course, I remember the Danny Masterson trial was still happening. And when I last checked up on it, which was like a week ago, Wednesday, I saw that there was an article written about it where the judge and the prosecutor and the defense attorney had a conversation, and it seemed like the prosecution and the defense both indicated to the judge that they should be wrapping up this case by Thursday or Friday this week, and then closings will be this Friday. So I'm like, awesome. Let me take this week. I flew out Friday, spent the weekend here, caught up with some friends. And yesterday I went to court, and lo and behold, turns out that Friday the prosecution is already rested, which is fine. I'm like, all right, so well, the defense is going to present their case, and the defense rests at 9:01 Monday morning. And I'm like, okay, so testimony is over. They read the jury instructions and the closings are the following day. So I'm like, okay, it happens. Not complaining. Like, it's welcome to the nature of trials. They're completely unpredictable.
Why did it go so fast? Are you trying to say that like are you saying that these were unusually short presentations? I mean that like the prosecution and the defense, they could have gone on longer, or they should have, or anything, or
I have no idea, honestly. I mean, sometimes, and I do this all the time myself, depending on the case, of course, that I will sometimes lead the prosecution on and tell them like, oh yeah, I have like a bunch of witnesses and my client's going to testify. And then we turn out, end up having zero witnesses and we don't call anybody. So
mm-hmm.
sometimes it's like a strategic decision.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, I don't know if it was or wasn't, or maybe the prosecution just wrapped up faster, because I understand there was another person that was supposed to testify that never did, that the prosecution never called.
Oh, for the prosecution. Okay.
Yes, for the prosecution. So again, these are all like strategic things that you do in the moment if you think you have your case ready to be submitted to the jury and you don't need that extra witness, or maybe you do need an extra witness. But again, it's not, the court has that time basically set aside usually. Like, they prepare in advance. I remember the Ruben Flores trial also was kind of like ahead of schedule. When I was there, I remember the judge even alluding to the fact, like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case was supposed to have been wrapped up October, whatever. It looks like we're ahead of schedule. Now, I don't want to get you all, get your hopes up too early. And I think actually at one point she even asked, or she mentioned it outside the presence of the jury. So the attorneys in the audience knew, but the jury did not. So there's a lot of like, the legal system is just funky in that sense, that there's a lot of like, they know this, but they don't know this. And these parties are privy to this information and the jurors have no idea. It's just, but yeah, so I'm still not complaining. I'm having a good time.
So, okay. So you did get a chance to see then the closing arguments, correct? Is that right?
Today. Yes.
Okay.
I just did a video on that on my channel. Go check it out. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, but you've done several videos on this, and people should check out your channel. Lots of great stuff there. So what is your impression of, I know that you're really good at analyzing juries. So let's start with that. You said you think the jury's going to come down with a guilty verdict, huh?
Yes. I'm all but certain. Let's just put it that way, based on
Wow.
everything I have seen. Yes.
And I know you said some of this in your video, but reiterate for my audience, why do you think that is?
Okay. So understanding a case does not take a rocket scientist. I think looking at all the evidence that we have so far, the public opinion is one thing, right? You have the public opinion, which is very heavily swayed towards Masterson getting a conviction, or at least like he should, like he did this and all that. But we've also heard of the whole concept of death by media and like execution by media, you know.
Sure. So Johnny Depp.
Yeah, death by public opinion. Exactly.
Right.
Well, in this case, you can't take that at face value until and unless you lay eyes on the individuals that are the ones who are going to be the ultimate arbiters, deciders, the decision makers, the final frontier, as we like to call them, of the case. And those are, of course, the jurors. Now, jury reading is a very multifaceted, just people reading in general is a multifaceted, multi-layered ordeal. You can't just like look at a person and they're like, you say something to them and they go, and they scowl, well, and they fold their arms, and you'd be like, well, they disagreed with that statement. What? They might be cold, and maybe they're scowling at they completely were not even listening to you. They were scowling at the fact that they just remembered they haven't had their coffee this morning and they're like really hungry for a bagel, whatever. Body language assessment, face language, and just the collective feeling of the aura, like, because here's the thing: evidence and facts leave behind a trail of breadcrumbs. And when you come into a courtroom, for example, that has a trial that's been happening in there for 3, 4, 4.5 weeks, you are walking into an already established zone that has its players that are, the hierarchy has long since been established, the facts are out in the open, and they have left an impression on the players, if you will, right? So the first thing you start looking at, of course, first of all, you have to acclimate to the situation. You have to acclimate to the vibe, the aura that you're in. When in Rome, basically. And you just, and again, being an attorney, I have just a slight leg up because I'm already comfortable in the courtroom setting, because I've been in them so many times. I don't need to be like, all right, am I okay? Am I bothering anyone? Am I disturbing?
Right. You can really zone in.
Yeah, I can just focus on what I need to focus. So I like start, I'll stare at the judge. Like, I don't care. Like what it's, she's speaking, I'm looking at her. And I will, and that's where it starts. It always starts with the judge, because they're the ones who you normally notice first. In this case, it was because they're the ones who were in the room. Sometimes you walk in, the judge is not even there. You pay attention to the lawyers, whatever. In this case, for me, it was the judge. And I noticed right out of the gate, the first thing that struck me very hard, I have not talked about this on my channel, so you're getting an exclusive. I noticed that the judge was already kind of, as expected. Again, a lot of this is like confirmation bias. Sometimes it may look like, and it is, and it absolutely is. I looked at the judge, and it seemed to me that she was more aligned with the prosecution. Like her chair was turned, her torso was turned. When she talked to the defense, it was always like a cocking of the head.
Oh no, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like if you notice these tiny little details. But again, you're building a pyramid is what you're doing. Right now, I didn't even have the foundation. I was still plowing the sand on which the pyramid was going to be built, right?
I love that analogy. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just came up with it. And so that was the first thing I noticed. So then I noticed, the way she was talking, the way that Danny Masterson was situated in his chair. He did not seem like, I remember Johnny Depp, for example, is one I can compare with that your viewers probably are familiar with. He was just so relaxed, he kind of almost was slouching in his chair, trying not to appear too kind of comfortable.
Right.
Compare that to Danny, who's just like very stern, or like has a very scowly look on his face. You can already tell that some bad shit has gone down. You missed all of it, but like I said,
it's not been good. It's like the aftermath of war.
It's like the aftermath of war, and you can tell who the winning and losing side is. I could tell almost immediately, just because of who had the positive energy and who had the negative energy. The prosecution appeared very confident, very open, very direct, and that's not uncommon. But I have seen prosecutors myself, and by the way, again, the best comparison is the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, where you don't have prosecutors, even though you can say that they are prosecuting the civil case.
Right. I understand. Yeah, no worries. Yeah.
Not an uncommon nomenclature in the legal world, but the civil attorneys, Elaine Bredehoft and Ben Rottenborn, they did not appear very confident. They appeared, kind of closed off and like occasionally cracking a smile here and there, trying to be friendly. But you can see through that. I'm not special. Everybody's got those bullshit detectors that are always like going off and like, I don't buy what you're selling over here. You feel like a used car salesman, and I'm not buying it. And the same thing here. The prosecutor was not pretending. Like, you could feel his, he's almost got like the mantle on his shoulder as he's walking around the courtroom. And I'm like, all right, something has gone down to make him feel this way over time. He didn't just wake up this morning and feel like that. I don't think in the beginning of the trial, I even said to an attorney who told me about this, in the beginning, he was not like this. He was a lot more stoic, a lot more factual, but now he had the witness testimony in the bag. You can't undo the clock. What's done is done. And like I said, now we're coming back to the whole, and here I am with my eyes, ears, and so on and so forth. And I could see all of that. So that was the first thing. Or the first few things, I guess you could say. Then they make a few arguments here and there, and then they brought the jury in. When they brought the jury in, that was the first time I got a chance to lay eyes on them. And I only got a chance to get a few notes on them yesterday. It wasn't as comprehensive as I would have preferred. Again, due to no fault of anybody's, it's just my schedule and what has turned out in court. You can't control these things. I got a chance to watch them as they listened to the judge's instructions. So the beautiful thing about human nature and humans in general is that people will give themselves away intentionally, most of the time unintentionally. It's all subconscious behavior. So when you have a belief, like a conviction, a widely held belief within yourself, within your soul, your corpus, that may or may not be part of who you are. It may be something that you have come to as a result of, like, let's say, a trial. When you have certain keywords that are thrown around, like, I don't know, am I allowed to say the R word? Are you against that? Because, like, I've been throwing it around on my channel.
No, I don't. Yeah, don't worry about that. You can say whatever.
Just want to make sure. So when the judge is reading the jury instructions to the jury, and you have words like guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, you shall find him not guilty, words like, phrases like forcible rape, sexual assault, with respect to Jane Doe number 1, Jane Doe number 2, Jane Doe number 3. All these little things, people already in the jury pool have assigned their own personal values, their own personal feelings, their own personal beliefs, and their own personal convictions with respect to each and every single one of these words. And it is the key of the observer, the reader of the room, to pay attention to what is happening, what is being read, and the key, and this is the key, you have to pay attention. If you don't pay attention, it is within the split of a hair, like the waving of a hummingbird's wing. If you don't notice it, if you're not looking, you will miss it. And when certain words are being thrown out and certain reactions, like, and again, it's
can be very subtle, right?
It may be very subtle, and a lot of times it almost feels like you're doing guesswork. No question about it.
You're looking for signs. Yeah. But you have to interpret. You can interpret wrong or whatever, or things can mean different things, right? Or whatever. Yeah. So you get a sense for it over time, I guess.
Exactly. And the key is to make sure that you are not just taking one data point, like jurors scratch their chin on that and oh, okay, that means this. Well, now that's pure guesswork. And that is the worst possible thing you can do. But if you notice a juror, let's say, kind of, having a certain reaction to one word, I don't know, it's the best way I can put it. And then they have another reaction to a different word. And it's like plotting points on a graph. And
you're getting a baseline kind of too, right? Like in a polygraph sort.
I've been getting a lot of ideas. I like that. Human polygraph.
So you look at them, you're trying to get a sense, you're not just taking any one reaction as truth, but trying to get like a whole assessment. And so you're watching the jurors, they're getting these instructions, and you're getting what?
So, well, I noticed that like 5 and 11 were looking at the family. None of them, so a very, very, not obvious, but a telltale sign. If you remember from the Johnny Depp trial, there was a moment, I said a lot of things, but this is one thing that I noticed was very crucial. And I think it was actually even thrown around a few times. Jurors number 7 and 9, I think it was, actually looked at Johnny Depp and kind of gave him a little bit of a smile on the last day of testimony, which is a telltale sign as to which camp they're in. Now, these jurors, none of them were looking at the prosecution and like nodding or smiling, because this is kind of, this is a criminal case. So the vibe is a little different. You don't want to like, I like to say in these criminal cases, there are no winners, because even if he gets convicted, even if he goes to prison, even if these women get justice, their bodies have still been violated. Their emotional, physical, mental trauma that they've experienced may never heal ever. So there are no real like winners.
It's serious business. Yeah.
But in a civil case, it's reputations are tarnished, but at least you don't have like the violation of the corpus.
Or the threat of like prison, actually, it's money and not prison.
the cutting of the finger, I almost forgot. That's kind of important, isn't it? But still, Amber was not sued for the
for the finger. Right. What else? Did they look at Masterson? Did they look at his side? They
didn't. That's
exactly not good for him, right? That's not good for him. Yeah.
If they can't make eye contact with you, that means that they don't trust you and they don't like you. And if they don't trust you and they don't like you, then you're probably going to get convicted. Again, just another data point on the graph. It's not, you can't draw immediate conclusions. The most dangerous thing when it comes to people reading, and maybe why everyone runs away from it and are afraid to do it, with the exception of like me and a few other people, is because of things like that. That everybody is afraid to get it wrong, so they assume that this is just guesswork. This is pure speculation, but it's not. The difference between speculation and an educated guess is exactly this: data points. So if you have 20 data points and they're pointing towards one direction, you can more confidently make an educated guess about something. If I had been in this trial since day one, I imagine I probably would have had, let's say 2,500 data points rather than the 200 that I have. That would have made my ability to assign value to a lot of these reactions a much bigger value than I currently am able to do. But the question that you asked, why do I think that he's going to be convicted, is yesterday it was already, again, it was just obvious. It was just obvious how the jury was feeling. Number 7, when she was selected, she was very, very strangely excited. Like, that is not something that you expect.
Like, I can't wait to sock it to him, kind of.
I don't know. That's just another
Or,
thing,
yeah, or exonerate him. You don't know, right?
or exonerate. I mean, she was an alternate.
Mm,
And
interesting.
she was just very, very happy. But so this is but yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for day one. There really wasn't a lot because it was just the reading of the instructions and paying attention to what jurors were saying, or not saying, sorry, what the jurors were exhibiting as the judge was reading the instructions. Because the most important one, when it came to like forcible rape, when that phrase got thrown around, because I was looking for it, I was waiting for it, the jurors very uncomfortably shifted in their seats. And again, it's an uncomfortable topic, but they're there to decide the fate of a man. And I didn't really talk about this on my channel because it was, I didn't want to give away the whole kit and caboodle. I wanted to wait until today, but now that the cat's out of the bag, that is also an indicator that they've already made their decision. They already know probably what they're going to rule yesterday, and they even more so today. But yesterday, jurors that are about to acquit, they don't get uncomfortable at the hearing of the words that they're about to be using to acquit someone, let's say.
Interesting. So the fact that some of them seemed uncomfortable at the mention of the charges, that can indicate that they voted guilty. Yeah.
That's one of the factors, yes.
It seems like there are several, I mean, you have several legit reasons for thinking that they're more inclined to guilt. And sorry, anything else on that?
From yesterday, that's pretty much it. It was a very, very short day. I think I was back here at like 11 o'clock, which is not even 2 hours.
And then today was closing. Is that right?
Today was closing, yes.
How about this? Who's, apart from what you think the verdict should be, were you more impressed with one closing argument versus another?
Definitely the prosecutions, which is extremely rare.
Really?
Because normally the prosecution is kind of dry and you kind of go, they did a decent job. They're probably going to win kind of thing. Not in this case. In this case, it's like, holy hell. That was one of the most emotional spectacles I have seen in a long time.
Or what was most compelling in terms of like points of evidence or argument in the prosecutor's statement?
So you have 3 charges of forcible rape here, each one a felony by itself.
Okay.
There were 4 women who testified. The 4th one, the judge instructed the jury that they can consider as a preponderance of the evidence in weighing all of the evidence collectively, but there is no separate charge. That's
Okay.
Trisha V. There was a pattern of behavior as the prosecutor went through in his closing, retelling the stories of every single one of the 4 women, with the exception of Christina B., who he was in a relationship with, even though she too had an incident about this. It's basically like, trap her in your house, give her a little bit to drink. She feels way more intoxicated than the 1 or 2 or 3 sips she had.
Oh, so he was drugging. That's
passes out. Yep. Passes out, wakes up, and my vaginal anal cavities hurt. Something has happened to them. That's literally been like the cookie cutter pattern with every single one of them. Plus, add on the fact that he is a Scientologist. Add on the fact that some of these women, not all of them, are also former Scientologists. I think the 3 charged are. The reason why they didn't come forward makes sense. Like I made the analogy today during my live to Kavanaugh, the Supreme Court justice that's currently sitting justice. Before he became justice, there was like this woman that came forward and said 40 years ago, he did this and this. That just came out of the blue. It was really bad timing, like trying to keep him off the seat. I don't know.
Right.
All this
Agreed.
politics.
Yeah.
But here you just have, when you have a pattern of behavior that seems to be consistent, these women have all gone through hoops, and jurors are going to start assigning their own values to this case. They were there. They sat there. They watched these women testify to their faces, just like we were like with Amber Heard going, I don't believe this bitch kind of thing. These jurors are also looking at these women and going, do I believe her? Yes. Or do I believe her? I don't know. Or do I believe her? No, absolutely not. They each had an opportunity to have that internal dialogue with themselves, with their bullshit detectors turned on. I can only go off of what I have heard and what I have seen. And what I have seen, and it seems to me that the jury is reacting in a very negative way towards Cohen, in a very positive way towards Mueller. They seem to empathize more with Mueller and much, much less with Cohen, almost to the point of side-eyeing. I mean, think of it this way. Everything that I saw, like all the telltale signs that I saw from the jury today, when Cohen was speaking, let's say, for example, are the same carbon copy telltale signs that I saw when Amber Heard was speaking, if that tells you anything.
So do you know how long is Masterson facing? I think I saw something like up to 45 years. Do you know?
Let's see.
45. And I've read very, very little, almost nothing about this case, but one of the things that I read is that, and I'm not sure if this actually came into the trial or not, but that a number of these women claim, and with some evidence, that they have been harassed by the Church of Scientology, even after leaving, even after coming forward. For instance, Chrissy B, she is married to the frontman for Mars Volta, the band the Mars Volta, and he has posted several times on social media about how 2 of their dogs were poisoned. And they actually found, the dogs died, and they actually found the poison, that it was rat poison, and it was very obvious. He showed pictures of it, that it looked like it had been planted there and everything. And so anyway, I don't know if that stuff like that came into the trial, but like that is what Scientologists, what the Church of Scientology is capable of. And I think it's very well known at this point, documented, the lengths to which they'll go to deal with dissenters or suppressives or people who will, and the thing is too, as we know, if you're a celebrity, you are revered in the Church of Scientology. And so someone like Danny Masterson, they would want to protect him much more than they would want to look out for the interest of, rape allegations or the rape accusers.
Well, of course, you are a celebrity. You are a potential disseminator of acquiring new talent.
Right. Right.
But to answer the question more directly, the second admonition, so there were not admonition, sorry.
Instruction?
In the instructional phase, another thing that they could consider but could not accept as the truth of the matter asserted was the harassment, stalking, and some other with respect to like Scientology. I can, by the way, I did not talk about this on my live stream, so I'm going to give you
okay, cool, awesome.
another little exclusive here. I can't say I was targeted today. I mean, I imagine yesterday they didn't know who the fuck I was because I was just a dude in a leather jacket sitting in a courtroom full of people. But today they knew who I was. Today they saw the video, they saw the tweets, and they're like, "Oh, that guy." And
are you a suppressive person?
Well, I'm not, because I'm not a Scientologist, so I can't be a suppressive person, right? I guess, or maybe I could. I don't know.
I think you can. You're probably on their hit list right now. Anyway, go on though.
That's great. Hold on, I hear a knock at the door. They're probably coming. No,
oh man, this would be the best video ever when they just come and like drag you away, and I can put
no!
all of them on.
Oh my god! Oh, send help! I'm at
It's like that movie Unfriended, if anyone's ever seen that. Okay, but why did you think he might have been targeted?
Well, okay, so I noticed a few of his buddies were like giving me some very hardcore stares.
Masterson's, some of
Masterson's
his
friends, sorry, they're seated in the courtroom. And so they're like staring at me pretty hard. And I mean, it's just like this little, you can sense the little culty vibe that they have just by being around them. Like they're not, they have like hand signals that they kind of like look at each other and they kind of do. And you're just sitting there and you're going like, one of them, as I was sitting in the courtroom, one of them, I went to the bathroom and I say to my neighbor, like, hey man, can you save my seat? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I leave and I come back and one of the friends, the Scientology friends, is in my seat.
What?
But there is enough room for me to sit. He just wanted to be next to me too. It's like an intimidation tactic. Somebody on my YouTube channel said it's called being a noisy tail. I didn't know that was a thing, but it makes sense. Noisy tail.
Hey, from what I've read about Scientology, it would not surprise me at all if they're doing some things to like some like psyops there, try to psych you out a little bit or whatever.
It would work if I was like a shy person and like, you know, never had human interaction before, going like, oh my God, why are they coming near me? But dude, I've had like prosecutors threaten me with ethics violations in the middle of my fucking trial. There's so little you can do to me. Like,
yeah.
psychologically speaking, there's
Understood.
Obviously physical violence.
If they kidnap you though and take you, you know, I mean, I don't know how much you've read about Scientology, but they actually, when some of their members become basically, well, then when they need to be re-educated, they actually take them to this place where they're forced to do like it's forced labor and like clean, you know, toilets with one lady said that she was forced to clean toilets with her tongue. But anyway, and they can be there for months. They can have to do this forced labor and they get fed like rice and nothing else or whatever, like starved. Like there's some crazy stuff that goes on with Scientology. And I don't know why they have a tax exempt status. Why our government will not revoke their tax exempt status. I don't know. So the verdict, you think in the next couple of days?
I think so. I think we're going to have it Thursday evening or Friday afternoon. It is not going to go into next week. I literally am giving that 0% chance.
Any thoughts on what the sentence would be if you just had to, like a shot in the dark, if he is found guilty?
That I cannot. That's a little too much.
Now, when people are sentenced for things like this, is it generally that they don't have to serve the full sentence? Like if, let's say he gets a sentence of 10 years, does that mean he's out in like 6, or what does that normally mean?
It depends. So there are 2 ways to get out early, parole or good behavior. So when you're paroled out, let's say you're serving a sentence of 20 years, let's say, depending on if it's a violent act. And again, I'm telling you from Kentucky's perspective, because that's the primary one that I know. I don't know California law, but
I'm sure it's more lenient. Something
well,
tells
it might be. I might not be. I don't know. It depends, you know. Like in Kentucky, for example, on any violent crime, you have to serve minimum 85% of your sentence before you can even be eligible for the consideration of being out on parole. So if
you serve most of your sentence.
10 years, you have to serve 8.5, like no question, before you're eligible. If it's a non-violent offense, I believe 20% is the minimum.
Okay. So he might have to serve a lot of it.
He might have to serve a lot of it. That's parole. And when you're paroled out, you still have the sentence like hanging over your head. You just have to make sure not to get in trouble. And if you don't get in trouble, then, you know, eventually it will expire and all that. But if you violate it, your conditions, and you go back, the most common misconception is, well, I have like a 10-year sentence. I got out at the 2-year mark. Here I am at the 9-year, 364 days. I'm 1 day short of, and I'm like, let's go celebrate. And you screw up and you pound someone's head in the asphalt, you know, break a beer bottle over their head, whatever.
Right.
And now you're not going back to prison for a day because that's all you have left. No, you have served 2 years. You have 8 years left on your sentence, and you're going back for the full 8 years. In terms of good behavior, though, you know, you ever heard the term 7/24?
7 days a week, 24 hours?
Right?
No, I don't.
No, you're close though. 7 months and 24 days is I believe, state prison term.
Okay.
Not federally. Federal is a little different. But if you're serving state time, nobody serves 365 days on a year state time, at least in Kentucky.
Okay.
The rule is 7 months, 24 days if you have good behavior and you don't have any issues or anything like that. So that's how people serving like 3-year sentences get out in 22 months, you know.
Okay.
So
is it generally
here.
so? Okay. So it's possible that he could maybe serve like only 2/3 of his sentence, something like that.
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay.
And he would be out with no parole, no probation, no nothing. He'll like scot free. Like once you serve your time, you serve your time. But if he gets like 40 years or something, then
it's gonna be a long time.
And I understand California is a hybrid. It's kind of like the jury recommends the sentence, but then the judge actually imposes it.
Okay.
But I don't know if they just automatically usually like accept the juror's recommendation or if they can overrule the juror's recommendation. I don't know. Because Kentucky is different. Kentucky just accepts the jurors as is. Like Florida is the complete opposite. Jurors decide absolutely nothing. Judges decide sentence start to finish. So every jurisdiction is different. It's hard to say.
Yeah, here in Texas, they just take you out behind the courthouse and shoot you after the trial. No,
sounds about right. That's a Texas thing to do.
All right. Well, this was an interesting interesting conversation, and I'm glad that you came on because I really wanted to do something about the Masterston trial, and I just have had no time and no idea, and really haven't gotten into it. So that's awesome. Well, you know, we are on the edge of our seat awaiting the verdict, I guess. And yeah, and everybody check the links below. So I have links to Larry DUI Guy's channel, and check out his other stuff. It's interesting, and we'll have you on again. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Colonel Kurtz, for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
All right, awesome. Talk to you later. Bye, everybody.